Because I'm obsessed with training teachers. I really needed to like create something new. And the majority of teachers said they need help working with older readers who struggle and how to help them and how to engage with them, motivate them, get them going, and small group. And that is literally my two favorite things. I literally love working with older kids who still need help in phonics and remediation with them in small groups. So it was like the stars aligned and I was ready to go. And I just went to town on this webinar. So I can't wait. Today is a webinar all about effective phonics assessments for older struggling readers. Now, if you work with students who are in first grade, you can use this too, but really it is specifically designed for kids who are like fourth, fifth, sixth, and up who don't have all of their basic foundational reading skills mastered. And we want to assess them and find out just how far back we need to go, but we don't want to assess them with like a first grader's resource, right? So how can we do that in the most effective way so that we can use it to drive our instruction? That's what we're going to talk about today. So, before we get started, if you've never met me before, welcome. My name is Jen. I've been a classroom teacher. I've taught in grades 3, 4, 5, and 6, so I know all about older readers who are struggling and reading significantly below grade level. I also have a master's degree in reading and a postgraduate degree as a literacy collaborative coordinator. My postgraduate degree was in Boston at Lesley University, and I was there for 2 years training under Irene Fountas and all her colleagues. It's there where I really like transitioned from teaching students to teaching teachers, and it was an amazing experience. So I love doing professional development, and these are just some of the things that I've done in the past, and that's kind of why I wanted to reconnect this summer with teachers. It's just a passion of mine I've always had. So I'm really glad that you're here connecting with me. Some of my favorite PD was when I was in Uganda. I trained this group of teachers for an entire week. It was amazing, exhausting, but amazing. I have two sons from Uganda, so I have a deep connection to the country, and I've been there a couple times training teachers. I also did a writing training with these teachers in Georgia, which was super fun. And you guys, I'm engaged. Okay, so I've been gone for a while. And life has changed a whole lot since I have been gone. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a little bit really like super happy about where I am now. And the reason I've been gone is because, sometimes you go through hard stages in life and you have to take a minute. You have to take a pause to take care of yourself, to take care of your family. And that's what I've had to do the last few years. But it feels so good to be on the other side of all that and to be back. And I just wanted to share. I'm kind of private on social media with my personal stuff, but this is my fiance. His name is Cleveland, and these are his two children. They're amazing. And we got engaged this spring. We've been together 2 years, and we're going to get married next October. So, anyways, that's enough about me. We're going to move on. So, I wanted to let you know, as I said earlier, maybe you're just hopping on, but all of my notes are included in tonight's webinar free link that I'm going to give you at the end. So, if I talk really fast, because sometimes I do because we have a lot to cover, don't worry about missing some notes. I am super thorough with my notes. I'm like the detail person, so you're going to get all of my notes at the end of today's session. It'll all be in one link with all of these pages as well. So you're going to get 34 pages of webinar freebies today. So everything I share with you pretty much today is going to be included in that free download. So you'll be able to get started assessing your older readers with phonics right away at the beginning of the year. You'll have everything you need. So, are you somebody who is supporting upper grade readers and they require targeted support in phonics, decoding, and fluency? If that's you, you are definitely in the right spot today. And I loved this quote I got on the Google form from a teacher. She said, "I'm a new teacher and I teach fifth grade. I didn't expect so many of my kids to be low. So learning how to help them, but also teach grade level material without leaving them behind would be helpful." And I just felt like this experience that this teacher had personally was so powerful. I feel like so many teachers who go into the classroom as a fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh, eighth grade teacher assume that most of their readers are going to be reading with automaticity and they're going to be able to decode and use all these skills. And they're often surprised that that's not the case. And they're kind of stumped on, well, the curriculum is still going, the standards are still moving forward. How do I get them to be able to do that without getting them too far behind? Maybe you need quick and effective assessment ideas and are that are not babyish and can get you reteaching your skills ASAP. This is going to be a lot of information, but I don't think it's really overwhelming. I think it's enough to really get you started and have a thorough understanding of your students. What we're going to discover tonight is 5 quick age-appropriate phonics checks designed for older struggling readers. So a lot of times with this group of students, we're having to pull materials that aren't designed for them and kind of tweak them to make them work. And I feel like they're a group of readers that often fall between the cracks. And what I love to do is to create stuff for them that is specifically for them and works exactly to their needs. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're also going to talk about how to turn phonics assessment results into targeted small group instruction. So we get the results. Now, what do we do? We're going to talk a little bit about that today. And we're going to discover some essential features of age-appropriate decodable readers for upper grade students because they're different than a first grader. We have 2 main webinar goals today. First, we're going to go over those 5 phonics assessments that you can do really quickly at the beginning of the year and also throughout the year. And we're going to go talk about beyond baby books, what to look for in decodable readers for upper grades, something that's going to target the standards, but meet them at their ability levels and not make them feel like they're reading something that was clearly designed for a 6-year-old and they're 12. So we're going to talk about that. Let's start with the 5 quick phonics assessments for your older readers. And now some of these you might not need. Some of them you might need for one student who's significantly low. Others you might pick and choose. But we're going to go all the way back to some phonics screeners that have a twist to them. Now remember, these are older students, so you might be working with middle schoolers. Maybe it's a student that's an English language learner. Maybe you're working with dyslexic students or someone with other significant processing delays. And you need to go all the way back and just take a glance and see, hey, can they identify even just the letters? Now, you might not need this assessment, but you might need it for an individual who is significantly below grade level or just learning English. So you're going to start by just asking them to name these letters. And again, because these are older kids, we don't want to do this like we would with a first grader or a kindergartner or a preschooler. So we're going to use language that's casual, that doesn't put a lot of pressure on them because let's be honest, this group of kids they know that they're struggling. They're oftentimes embarrassed. They have a low negative attitude towards reading. They don't feel great about it. And nobody wants to do anything they're not good at. Like, I'm not good at golfing, so therefore I'm not going to be a golfer. These kids already kind of have that attitude. So we want to create language that makes it more inviting for them to not feel like this is going to be something really hard for them. This language is included on the handout that I'm giving you. This is all part of the freebies. So you can say, start by naming as many of these letters as you can. If you get stuck, no problem. We're taking the pressure off. Scan the list and show me the ones you're sure about. So again, this is not like a test. This is not a grade, just really casual and keep your tone super casual too. So you'll start with just the uppercase and then you'll move into the lowercase. All of these pages are included in your freebie. So this is something you can do really quickly at the beginning of the year. If you notice one of your readers is significantly low or coming in with very little English, you can do these. And then you're going to do the consonant sounds. So you go from the uppercase to the lowercase to the consonant sounds. And I would just cover that bottom part where it says vowel sounds. And as they read, again, you're going to use casual language. So you might say something like, let's go through these letters together. Say the sound for each one if you know it. If you know it, right? If any are tricky, just skip to the ones you're confident about and just say it real casual. And as they do it, you see I'm checking off here the ones that they can sound out. And then I give them a total out of those consonants. How many did they master? How many could they correctly say? And I'm not going to like pressure them to keep trying and trying. I'm just getting a snapshot here. I want to see what they can do. And then just move into the vowel sounds. And with this, you're going to use a little bit different language because we know vowels make more than one sound. So you might say, can you tell me the sounds of each letter? If the student names a letter, then you would count that as the long vowel sound. And then you can ask, can you tell me another sound for that letter? And the student should be able to then name the short vowel sound. So you'll kind of score each one of these vowels here. All of these pages, again, are in your free download. The last part of this initial phonics screener is just having them read a list of CVC words. Again, this is older students, and we want to see where they're at. So give them this list of 20 words, ask them to read them out loud, and then on this scoring sheet, you can just mark if they're correct. If they don't say the word correctly, you can write phonetically how they say it. And then that stuff on the right is just what you can use to drive your instruction. So resources that would drive your instruction for that. This is a page also included in your free download that you can put all your students on one page. So say you work with multiple students who are significantly below grade level, you can put all their names on here and get a snapshot of the kid you're working with. Like if you're going to work with uppercase letters, who would you pair up together? Lowercase, consonant sounds, and all of that. And ask yourself questions like this. This is all in your free downloads. You can ask yourself questions about the students and how they're performing. So, for example, Ezra, he got a 23, a 24, a 20, a 5, and a 2. And do I recommend him for remediation? I would say yes, because Ezra's in seventh grade and he's still struggling with some of the letters. So he might not need an entire lengthy remediation, but I would do a remediation with him and focus on those letters that he's still struggling with. Maybe he's dyslexic and mixing up his B's and D's still and stuff like that. So this screener, while it feels like it's going way, way back, you will be surprised at how many fifth graders and sixth graders can sometimes have holes in their basic phonics. And my dog is coming up on my lap, but we're going to ignore him. Okay, so the second phonics assessment that I will do is word lists. And again, I'm going to give you this list. What you want to do is give a list of 15 to 20 increasingly complex words that reflect a different phonics pattern, and then just ask them to read them aloud and decode them. So you're going to get this list in the free download. Awesome, right? You're going to get all 20 of these words that get increasingly harder. Now, of course, I wouldn't have them read them all in one day. You might break this up, especially at the beginning of the year. You might have them read 20 words in a day. So in 4 days, you could get through all of these. And it breaks down all of the major phonics skills. So you're going to see where are there holes in phonics instruction that you need to go in and teach to automaticity. The third type of phonics assessment, which is super powerful, is dictation sentences. These are going to help you assess foundational skills. So when you're using dictation sentences, you're testing their phonemic awareness, their phonics knowledge, you're testing their spelling, grammar, punctuation, and their writing stamina as well. It's a great way to test out how your students are as writers without having them use like ideas to come up with their own writing. It really gives a clear picture on how well your students can actually apply a skill after you just did it in a reading lesson as well. It really will help you identify gaps and misconceptions in what the students know and do not know. So you're going to get to see what are their common spelling errors that they're making when they're writing these sentences after you read them to them. You're gonna get to see how they hear and then reproduce the sounds into words. And how do they use punctuation? Are they using it correctly? Are they using capitalization correctly? A lot of times, kids this age, they don't because they're just, they're used to social media and texting, so they don't really understand a lot of the capitalization and punctuation. Dictation sentences are going to help you see that. Again, they're great to use all the time. After you teach a phonics skill, you can see how does the student apply that skill into a dictation sentence. It's a really powerful way to not only notice that, but to reinforce that skill in a sentence. And also dictation sentences, they involve a lot of different things. So they have to listen to what you're saying, they have to process, and they have to write it down. So this taps into multiple parts of their brain. And it supports memory and understanding, especially for students with dyslexia, English language learners, and other learning differences. Like I said at the beginning of the webinar, I encourage you to take notes because for me, I know it always grounds my learning when I'm writing things down. And it's the same for students. When you're dictating a sentence and they're having to write it, it's really going to ground their learning on those skills that you just finished just teaching. And of course, it's going to help promote those grammar skills like sentence construction and language awareness. So they're going to learn how to write in complete sentences, which I think a lot of kids just really don't do very well. Learning how to write in complete sentences correctly and how to punctuate those sentences. When you use dictation sentences, there's five main goals. So number one, of course, with any assessment, we want to see what the students can do and what they can't do. And we want to be able to provide quick, multifaceted snapshots into their abilities and their foundation. We want to diagnose gaps and pinpoint those areas of weakness. We want to be able to track their progress over time. So, monitoring their improvement in targeted areas. You can do that with dictation sentences. You can use their dictation sentences for your ITI team meeting or an IEP meeting when you're progress monitoring. And of course, you're going to use them to guide your small group instruction. And you can use them to help you group your students by need. You can design a mini lesson with them that targets a gap that you notice that they have and any follow-up activities that you want to do. And again, like I mentioned before, it really helps you measure that transfer of learning from something they read, some skill that they're learning into can they now dictate that in a sentence? Are they able to apply it, not just in one isolated skill? So before you begin doing dictation sentences with older students who are struggling, you really want to make sure you set the tone that it's not a test. Again, you want to keep it kind of casual, kind of light. These kids know they're struggling. They know that. So we don't want to give them more pressure. We want to just kind of set the tone that this isn't a test. Have your materials ready. Are you going to use dictation notebooks? That is something. Have you ever thought about a dictation notebook? I don't know if anyone's ever used that, but that's a great way to keep track of the students' skills and their progression over time as well. Or you're going to use loose leaf or pre-lined paper. So have all that ready. And then choose the sentences and make sure that they're aligned to whatever you just worked on. Use age appropriate language. Here we're talking about older kids, right? So you might say, and I have this in my notes for you, so you can certainly reuse this. I'm going to read a few sentences out loud. Your job is to write them down just the way you hear them. Don't worry about being perfect. Again, keep your tone light. Don't worry about being perfect. I just want to see what you hear when I read these sentences. This helps me understand what you already know and what we can work on together. Write down what you hear the best you can. And so, again, this really just sets a tone of like, okay, just do your best. It's okay. And this is how you can scaffold the dictating. So first, of course, you're just going to read the sentence as is. So you'll read the sentence and ask them to write that. Now, again, this is something you can do with your whole class at the beginning of the year. It's a super quick assessment because you don't have to pull kids one at a time. You can have your whole fifth grade class do this, and you'll be able to tell really quickly where those kids are that are struggling phonetically. Can we go to the dog park? So you just read it really, really like slow and casual like that. Repeat the way you state it exactly as it's written. And then after a minute, go ahead and read it in pauses, like in sections. Can we go to the dog park? And do it like that a couple times in sections where you're pausing. And then you may notice that students, several of them are struggling with a word if you're walking around and you're noticing. So you might do it like this. Can we go to the dog park? Let's think about the word park. What sound do you hear at the beginning? And then just give them a reasonable amount of time to go ahead and do that because now you're seeing can they do it the first time you read it or the second time you read it or are they more successful with the pausing and then when you go to this third level are they still not able to get that word or have they got it? That means if they've gotten it on this third level they're not in an automaticity level but at least they're getting there, right? So we're kind of paying attention to that as well. And then after they've written the sentence, ask the students to reread their own sentence and encourage them to check for, do you have all your letters capitalized that need to be capitalized? How's your spacing between your words? How's your spelling looking? How's your ending punctuation? Do you have the right punctuation at the end? This was a question, right? So you're going to model like how to self-check your own work here. Encourage them to check their sentences. This is in your handout. This is your freebie. All of that casual language I have at the top of this freebie for you. And I did give you 5 sentences that have very specific phonics skills involved in them as well. So this could be a quick place to start at the beginning of the year with all of your students. And you're going to see some kids are going to fly through this. Other kids are going to get it as you go. And there may be some others that are kind of struggling and you're going to know right off the bat where those kids are at. After the dictation, you can use their writing to inform your small group instruction, of course. Identify any phonics or spelling or grammar patterns that you need to revisit, maybe pull a strategy group and track their growth over time. So with the dictation journals, you can progress monitor. Just get a regular notebook for each kid. You can even do a smaller one or cut your notebooks in half and just have them date it and write the dictation sentences. And you can see over time not only their spelling and grammar improving, but also their sentence prettiness. What's the word I'm thinking of? Like how well they're writing, their handwriting, their spacing, is that improving as well? You can make your own dictation sentences with any resource that you're using. So after you do your reading assessment or you do your reading lesson, you might combine some of the skills that you use to teach specifically and come up with your own sentences. So after, for example, using this page with a small group, you might have the group do two dictation sentences, and you could do one that's a little easier, one that's a little harder, and see where they're at. Can they apply, for example, this one is learning that magic E rule. Can they write words with magic E in sentences? I hate when I miss the bus. That one's a little bit easier. I hate when I am late and I miss the bus to school. That one's a little bit trickier. So applying that again, dictation sentences are awesome. I wanted to talk really quickly about grading, and I use the term grading with a quote. Grading them, you want to grade dictation sentences really for growth. You want to just see how they're improving. So you're not grading so much for accuracy, especially early on, and you want to differentiate your expectations based on the student's ability. And you want to consider grading them with your students. And again, by grading, I mean like reviewing them, talking through the mistakes, and using that as a coachable moment. And if grading, be sure this is so important with older kids, and we're going to talk about in next week's webinar so much more about this kind of stuff. But if you're grading them, be sure to separate the score from their identity. So you may say something to them like, this is what the writing shows us about your reading today, not who you are as a reader. And I think the way that we use language as teachers is so absolutely critical, especially for this group of learners. So separating their identity from their grade is very important. There's 5 different ways you can grade dictation sentences, and I'm going to give you some goodies for all of these. So let's talk about rubrics. You can use a simple rubric like this, which I'm including in your free download that I created. So you can give them a 1 if they need support, 2 developing, 3 proficient, and you're just going to assess their spelling and phonics, capitalization, punctuation, complete sentence, and presentation. If there's something specific you want to talk about, you can put that on the bottom where it says top 3 focus areas. So say spelling and phonics, they're constantly getting that magic E wrong. They're leaving the E off, or they're making it where the two vowels are together and they're just not understanding the magic E pattern. You would put that as a skill you want to focus on with them. And then you can use this page that I'm giving you as kind of like an overview of all your students, how they're doing, a progress monitor of their rubric dictation sentences. Rubrics and point-based systems are similar. This one, you just put a score out of 12 on this page based on spelling, capitalization, punctuation, and their handwriting. And again, I'm giving you all of these. So this is a student page that you can use. So this is an error analysis feedback, which is really cool because older kids, they like to hear how they're doing, what they're doing. Let's take the guesswork work out of what we're doing. So rather than assigning a grade, highlight or underline their errors and review them with the student, emphasizing their growth. And this is especially useful with older struggling readers. So they would write the sentence in those lines, and then you could use the code to mark the mistakes in the sentence. So the spelling could be red, capitalization blue, punctuation orange. They could do this on their own after looking at the sentence. So they could analyze the correct sentence with what they wrote and mark their errors and notice their errors, because when we internalize things, we learn them a lot better. So you might just give them the correct version and ask them to compare it. Or maybe they use this with a partner, or you do this together with them. This is a checklist I'm giving you as well. Same idea. They would take the sentence, compare it to the one that's done correctly, and just mark, did I have correct capitalization, correct punctuation? So they would just get to check. And who doesn't love a good checkbox? I know I do. I know kids do too. And then the last part is just that progress monitoring piece. This page I'm giving you again in the freebie. You'll just get to track their scores or their rubrics over time to show progress. And again, really nice to use in an IEP documentation or RTI team meeting. Number four, we only have two left. Number four is the pseudo word reading, which pseudo word is another word for nonsense words. So I'm giving you all of this in the free download as well. Nonsense words are a great tool to use with older students. And oop, where'd I go? There we go. Oop, there we go. You're gonna get this list of 20 or 80 words, and I would do 20 a day and just have them read them out loud to you and see, can they read them phonetically? Now, they make no sense. They're nonsense words. So really, we're taking away the context. They can't really memorize the word. It's not real. So they have to rely on their true folk phonics and decoding abilities to see if those students can apply those rules to the words. Again, it's going to help you identify gaps in their foundational skills. And that's really the goal of all of these assessments with our older readers. We want to meet them where they're at so we can start our remediations in our small groups right where they're at because that's where we're going to make the most gains and the most progress. We know that, right? So we want to find where their gaps are. And older readers, they can often develop coping strategies that mask their weak decoding skills. So they really are good. They have gotten really good at like tricking us, manipulating us to think that they've got everything down because they have to, right? They have to. But using these types of assessments are really gonna strip that down and let you see, can they use these decoding skills or not yet? They force them to decode each sound, making it easier to spot any missing skills like blending or vowel teams and all that good stuff. And then you'll be able to target your intervention more effectively. So the results from these assessments help teachers determine which phonics patterns need to be retaught or refocused. This means that instruction can be precisely matched to a student's current skill level. Not too easy, not too advanced. Goldilocks and the Three Bears. They support reading fluency and accuracy as well. So students who struggle with decoding nonsense words, they often have difficulty with real multisyllabic words, which impacts their fluency and comprehension. So if they're not able to read these nonsense words with an automaticity, they're definitely going to be struggling with multisyllabic words. And in the upper grades, there's lots of text with multisyllabic words. Practicing nonsense words can improve their orthographic mapping, which is just the ability to connect letters and sounds together. And that boosts their accuracy in reading over time. And it's just going to reveal how they process a text. So you can observe as a teacher, how do they attempt? So they're going to, all these words are going to be words they have to sound out because they're not words that make any sense, right? So how do they attempt to blend the sounds together? Do they guess based on partial clues? Do they just make the initial sound? Do they skip unfamiliar chunks? These observations can really uncover some ineffective habits that they have and also use that to guide your reteaching. So nonsense word lists equal a clear window into a reader's decoding brain. Pretty powerful stuff. For older struggling readers, they strip away guesswork and let teachers see what phonics skills are secure and which still need work, giving you confidence and the student confidence too. Okay, so the last one we're going to talk about today, and I hope you have some questions for me, and I'm going to give you this awesome freebie too, is the decodable text cold read. This is, now you can tell I'm getting a little bit more difficult, more difficult. We started with like letter name identification, right? And then, dictating sentences, wordless, dictating sentences, nonsense words. Now we're in like a full decodable cold read. So this is a cold, unrehearsed read of a decodable text. And if you use this, you'll be able to see which sound and spelling patterns the students do or don't know. Again, what an assessment does. Whether they're guessing instead of decoding, so be paying attention to if they're just guessing words, skipping words, or they're taking the time to attempt to decode those, or how they handle multisyllabic and unfamiliar words. They really provide you clear, actionable data. So you're going to measure their accuracy. Are they reading correctly? Their fluency. Are they laboring word for word? Or are they reading in chunks? How's their fluency sounding? And their self-correction and their perseverance. Older students don't have a lot of reading stamina. Older students who struggle typically don't have a lot of reading stamina and they can struggle with their perseverance. So really paying attention to that. Are they going back and correcting? You're using decoding now in the context of a text, right? We're doing comprehension. So older students who struggle often skip or don't retain early reading instruction. for a variety of reasons. And we're going to talk about a bunch of different reasons on Tuesday next week, but they just do. So these decodable cold reads will help reinforce that systematic phonics that they missed in when they were in first grade and help rebuild their confidence with manageable text. They're not too long for them. Also, it helps them prevent guessing habits because decodable texts are controlled for specific phonics patterns. The students can't really rely heavily on pictures or context clues, and they must actually decode the words. They're going to build that stamina and pay attention to that print. Once the cold read is done, they can use that decodable text again and again and again. They can reread to boost their fluency, to boost their confidence, and they can use it for dictation or a phonics review integrated into your comprehension, grammar, of course, small groups. So, in summary, cold reading decodable texts help teachers assess and reteach with precision, building a strong reading foundation for older students without relying on guesswork or overly simplified babyish content. There's 7 key features. Now, I know I talked about at the beginning of the webinar, and I have all these in my notes for you too, but I was going to go over like what to look for, how to find resources that are good decodable text for older readers who struggle. So you want to look for ones that have a phonics controlled vocabulary. So the majority of the words in the passage are going to follow a phonics pattern. It's really intentionally taught that way. And they may increase in complexity as they go on. There may be some sight words or some vocabulary also introduced too. And the another key characteristic is the new text can previously be building upon other taught patterns. So maybe you start with short vowel decodables and you move into long vowel and so on. There's a lot of repetition in decodable text. So the key phonics patterns are repeated multiple times throughout the passage. And this reinforces that orthographic mapping and strengthens the long-term word recognition. There's controlled syntax and sentence structure. There's not super long sentences because with these older readers, they need nice short sentences so that they can get through a thought without having to attend to all of the sounding out of every word, especially if there's multisyllable words. They need to like get to the beginning to the end of a sentence kind of quickly so that they can move on to the next sentence or new thought. And again, it focuses on decoding and it's not focusing on complex grammar and super complex multisyllabic vocabulary and words. Another characteristic of decodable texts that work well is there's not a lot of reliance on context clues or pictures. So they need to decode the words. There's not a lot of illustrations for them, and they're minimal pictures to support comprehension. And another characteristic is they're aligned to a phonics scope and sequence. Kind of, I talked about that already. So it matches a specific pattern in a phonics progression, and they can practice what they've just learned, making the learning to reading connection immediate. And the last, but of course not least, for these kids that so often we have a hard time finding resources for, is that it's age appropriate content. Because decodable readers are mostly almost all designed for 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds, not 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds. The stories and the topics need to feel appropriate and respectful for our older readers. The text has to avoid being overly simplistic or juvenile for these kids. They're gonna be like, this is the dumbest story ever. I can't believe I have to read this if it's about something for a 5-year-old, right? The visuals can't appear babyish, and it has to be kind of centered on real life, engaging, informational topics too. Those are the key features. Now, I included this page that I made for you that comes up with 20 questions. So if you're looking at a passage or a book and you're like, hey, is this going to be a good decodable reader for my older kids who are struggling that I know need this phonics and systematic instruction? Take this page. Ask yourself these questions. Check off. If it's yes, check it off. Does it align with the phonics curriculum? There's 5 questions for that. Is it going to be useful in my instruction? There's five, I think 5, 2, 4, 6 questions for that. Is it engaging and age appropriate for my readers? There's some questions for that. And a little final check. Is there a clear purpose for using this as a cold read? So you've got a nice little one-page checklist. When you're looking for decodable readers here, you're going to get this in your free download. So you might be thinking, where can we find decodable readers that fit the criteria and needs of our older readers? This is actually really hard to do, and that's why I have been working for years to create resources like this because there really is not a lot out there. I have these decodable readers and they are actually on sale. I put them half off till 11 o'clock tonight, which I don't think I've ever done before. I just want kids to have resources, especially these kids, that will make them successful. So this bundle gives you 180 passages to use as decodable readers with your older kids in the small group setting. They are specifically designed to cover all of the things that we need in a decodable reader with older kids. If you look at it, you can see the text is focused on a phonics skill that matches a lesson or goal. You can see there's a big rule right up top where they have to follow that vowel E, and you can just literally read this to them and boom, you've covered your skill. Does it provide multiple chances to practice the target? Look at how many words are in here that have that magic E rule for the kids, but not too much text. Can I use this for a short, focused cold read without a lot of pre-teaching? Well, you would just read the big rule and have them read it. Is it short enough to complete in one setting, but long enough to assess decoding? It's all on this one page. Kids aren't going to get overwhelmed. And then you've got all of these words in there to assess. Are they actually reading these words with automaticity? Are they stopping to sound them out? Are they getting them or not? You're paying attention to all of that. And then, of course, the most important part for these older kids, the engagement. Is it age appropriate? Does the story or topic feel appropriate and respectful for older students? We want to respect and honor them for their age. This particular one is called I Missed the Bus, something, a lot of 12-year-olds probably experience. And you can look at the language. The language just says walking to school is lame. That sounds like something a 12-year-old would say versus a 6-year-old. It's lame to walk alone. So there's that repetition. She said she would, he said he was not playing my game. So you can tell this language is not babyish at all for them. I said he was lame. Again, repeating, repetition. Do the visuals support comprehension without looking like they're made for kindergartners? And you can see the art and all of this is designed to really look like it's for like preteen level, even though the ability level in the context is a lower level skill. And then the final check, is there a clear purpose for using this as a cold read? And will this text allow students to feel successful after a first read, even if they make mistakes? That's a big thing too. So why did you show up today? Maybe you need to pinpoint exactly where your older readers stand with phonics and decoding, and I really hope I was able to help with that. Or maybe you need support with phonics data to choose the right materials for your small groups. So the big question, how can I take what I learned today and get started with reading assessments for your new year and instruction? You can spend time creating and researching assessments and tools for working with your students, and you can absolutely use the freebies I'm about to give you as a great starting point as well. And you can also grab the phonics assessments I have that are in addition to what I'm giving you for free and the decodable readers and have everything you need. The phonics assessments are just going to take what I'm giving you for free and go to the next level. They're only $6, half off. They're normally 12. And you're going to get additional phonics assessments. You can use these for oral reading or you can use them as a written spelling assessment. So you could give them to your whole class in one shot as a written spelling assessment or pull kids individually and do them orally. You get 12 lists in this product and it comes with all of the data management pages as well. So you're going to decide, hey, which skill do I want to assess? And then you would pick which data tracking form you want to use. Do you want to use this more simpler form or do you want to use this one where you can see resources that will be available, whether depending on how they do. And then you just have the students read the list of words or give it to them to write on a piece of paper as a spelling test, score their assessment, and then use the results to drive your instruction and student practice. The decodable readers are also available in individual sets, but this is for the whole 180 of them. What you get is basically a systematic phonics program, perfect for student remediation in small groups and designed exactly specifically for older readers. So on day one, you would have them teach that big rule, teach that skill, have them read it, and then do a little bit of vocabulary work on the bottom. Every passage comes with two vocabulary words in bold, and oftentimes they match that pattern. So, like you can see, this one says explode is in bold, and that matches the big rule as well. And then day two, you can have them read the same passage again and then do some comprehension work. So there's multiple choice comprehension and open-ended. And then day three, it's that same passage again. And now they're taking, this is really cool because they're taking those words that are in that phonics pattern and they're putting them in the context of another sentence. So these sentences aren't from the actual passage, but they're like the words have to fit and make sense in those passages or in those sentences. And then day four is really great for those English language learners because you're doing word work here. So they can read the story again, and then they have to make the words work with different suffixes. So ing and s, making them plural, and then playing around with tenses. How do they sound past tense? How do they sound present tense? And so on. So you get to do a little word work on that day. I also include in all of the sets my best teaching skills for if you're using these with an intervention group, with kids with dyslexia or kids who are English language learners. I give you a bunch of different tools for that. I wanted to show you this one too. These are all at just jenbengal.com. At the top, I have them as featured products. So this one is a phonics flashcard set that my best friend Andrea, who's an amazing illustrator, she drew all these pictures, like insane. And you can tell, look at the one where it says stung. That's a boy who's definitely not 5 years old, who's an older boy, and he's literally getting stung everywhere. So all of the pictures are designed for older kids. So again, honoring their level that they're at and creating phonics flashcards for them that don't look babyish. Again, there's pages here where you can take that learning and they have to take the pattern and make more words they know with that pattern with the student pages as well. Okay, this is something too. Oh, I'm so nervous about. I'm so nervous. I love doing professional development and I love connecting. I've been saying for years that I want to go to people's schools, that I want to do more in person, but my kids have always been my number one priority and they're older now. So I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I making excuses? Just bust down that wall. Don't be afraid, Jen. Just go for it. So I put this together. And if you like have the ability to talk to your principal and your principal's cool, I mean, I don't want to go to a school where I don't like the principal, right? But like if your principal's cool and you guys want to bring me, like check this out. You just go to pdwithjen.com and you can look at it and there's like a whole thing you can look at. So I just wanted to put that out there. Oh, y'all are so sweet. You signed up for my webinar. Yay. Okay, so it's time for your freebies and then we're gonna do our Q&A. And I'm gonna put my old lady glasses on so I can actually like read your questions. Yay, y'all are so great. I have no idea what's been going on in the chat. So hopefully everyone was nice to everybody, I hope. Okay. Freebie time. Let's see.